From Mountain Home to Raft River, we've got all the District 4 analysis you'll need to know. This is the Magic Valley Prepcast with Scott Burton.
That's right. It's another edition of the Magic Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com. Breaking down everything going on District 4 in the state of Idaho each and every week. Brandon Baney with the guy who was just jamming out on the video. If you're watching this on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel or Facebook page, you saw Scott Burton rocking out. Scott, what's going on?
Oh, not much. Ask Lauren Jensen how the rocking out went at girls state basketball, because he got party boyed a couple times as I was up there doing my thing. And,
okay,
made a spectacle.
Explain for our audience that may not know, what is the party boy?
Well, to my understanding, you get up nice and close to somebody, just kind of get in their bubble and just do one of those things, you know? And basically it's not so much about the dance move as it is making someone completely uncomfortable and being a bubble buster. So for me, it's never about the dance moves. Those are natural, but getting in somebody's bubble and goofing them up, that's the fun part.
Making people uncomfortable. That's your wheelhouse, Scott. So.
It is. And I'm sure you're going to segue with that and go, speaking of uncomfortable, I am here.
Well, speaking of uncomfortable, the Burley Bobcats sure made life uncomfortable for everybody they came across at the 4A girls state basketball tournament last week. Now, this is perfect, Scott, because you were on the call for all of those 4A tournament games.
Yeah.
You know, we were deprived of the matchup we all wanted to see, right? Burley and Blackfoot. Blackfoot got upset by Skyline, which led to kind of an anticlimactic championship, but nonetheless, very impressive season for those Burley girls.
Yeah, you know, I mean, when you have to win a state title, there's a lot of things that have to go your way. You know, it just doesn't happen a lot of the times. I mean, you have to have teams play badly and maybe get knocked off. You have to have people on your own team step up. You've got to be on the correct side of the bracket, you know, which is a little bit better now than it was. But you have to have a lot of things break your way to win a state title. It's just not showing up and the best team always wins. In this particular case, Burley had a lot of things break their way. They got the bracket they wanted. They got Blackfoot on the other side. They had Blackfoot go down. But at the end of the day, I think the best team in 4A ended up winning the state title, you know? So talk about the breaks that maybe they got with Blackfoot losing, but the way Burley was playing, you know, I just don't see anybody beating them. And obviously it begins and ends with their all-world player.
Yeah, Amari Whiting, right? The junior who has committed to Oregon. She still has a year left. So there's a good chance, you know, Burley runs this thing back next year. But, you know, and it was really fun for me. The 4A championship was the first time I got to see Burley in person at state. Of course, I had seen Burley in the regular season. But, you know, Amari Whiting, all this attention is focused on her. And yet I found myself gravitating towards Sydney Searle, Lindsay Searle, all of the complementary players, because Amari Whiting put up close to 30 points per game, but it was like very unassuming and very quiet almost. And she did a really nice job of deferring to her teammates, almost to a fault sometimes. You know, I thought a couple of times she drove and then kicked out when she didn't need to. She could have taken it to the rack and scored if she wanted to, but she knew that, you know, to actually finish this thing and get it across the goal line, it's not going to be a one-player show. She's going to need her teammates.
Yeah, it's really difficult for a team to have a ton of success and continued success when you have an all-star like Amari, because, you know, they get lost in the shadow and then they don't really know what their role is. They don't know exactly what their purpose is on the floor. A team doesn't have an identity. You know, the only thing that they do is give it to their Allen Iverson and let him score 1,000 points, and everybody just stands around and watches. And, you know, a lot of times we see that, and these kind of role players don't feel like they're part of anything. Well, I was interested to see how Burley was going to handle that. And I've watched them all season long because they're in our conference, but the way that group played together around a superstar was impressive. Because like I said, you know, you get these superstar teams where they just don't gel. They don't have a team. They've got one player. Burley wasn't like that because everybody contributed, and their philosophy, speaks to that. And I think, their coaching staff did a fantastic job drilling into them what's important, because that was a team that would beat your butt on the boards, and that gives everybody a purpose. You don't have to be a scorer or rebound. You just have to have a nose for the basketball. And so what they do is they just drilled that into them. And then they love to run. And when you have a ball handler and a distributor like Amari was, then everybody was able to get involved. So their philosophy fit around having a superstar. And boy, they just really weren't, I don't want to say they weren't challenged, but you look at their back through. I mean, they beat Middleton by 11. That game was controlled by Burley most of the way. Middleton was hanging in there. They got by Preston by 13, and then they boat raced Skyline up until that fourth quarter when Skyline wanted to try to get back in it, but it was way too late. So, I mean, Burley just cruised, really, when you think about it, through the tournament.
Yeah, I thought their most difficult challenge came in the opening round against Middleton. I thought it got easier from there, and part of that's Max Preps. Middleton should have never been the 7 seed, but that's another topic for another day.
Yeah.
But for Burley, this is so exciting. So my question to you, Scott, is, how realistic is it for Burley to come in next year and run it back? They're gonna lose some players, but they do bring back Whiting. So
it's gonna be tougher. It's gonna be a lot tougher because the Searles were a huge part of all of that. As were a couple of other seniors, but the Searles were huge and instrumental in that because they provided a little outlet for Amari to not have to do it all, including the rebounding, the passing, all of it. And with them gone, they're going to have some young players step up into the world of this senior. And I think it's going to be a little bit more difficult. And anytime you try to run one back, it's always difficult anyway. But losing the supporting cast, and that's where it's at. Amari's going to be the player. She's always going to get her points. She's always going to get her numbers. I mean, she's just that good. But what does the supporting cast do? And without one, it could be frustrating. Not that Burley isn't going to have one, but I'm just saying it might be a little bit tougher this time around.
And now the Whiting women have a little bit of a bragging rights over the Whiting men in that family, right? Because Amber Whiting, the head coach, delivered a title to Maury. That was something that Trent Whiting and Jace Whiting never accomplished at Burley. They had a lot of success, but never could quite climb that mountain. So once again, like it is in most families, women have the ultimate bragging right over the men, right?
Oh, yeah, in more ways than one. But knowing that family, they're not that competitive, so I'm sure it doesn't come up at all.
Right. We should notice before we move on, Amari Whiting did break a couple of her own 4A state records, most total points in the tournament. I think she ended up with 89, which is pretty awesome. Most points per game in a single tournament as well. So,
yeah, I mean, breaking her own records that she set as a sophomore, breaking them as a junior, and if they can get the right cast around her next year, there's no reason why Burley won't be back at the state tournament, and she'll have a chance to do it all again. Because if they do get back here next year, she is still going to have to be the one to score the points. So if they're back at state, look for them to maybe have some more records broken. We'll see.
Definitely. Let's talk about Mountain Home real quick. They were a surprising 2-and-out to me. I thought Mountain Home at least would be playing on Saturday, but that 4A field was really loaded, and Mountain Home just kind of ran into a buzzsaw there at state.
They did. And Mountain Home, man, they ran into a problem, and Skyline wins the play-in game, comes in ranked number 4, and then works their way all the way to the state title game. That was Mountain Home's draw, and Mountain Home struggled finishing at the rim. That was their big thing, because Mountain Home had the pieces to do some damage. They could shoot the ball from the outside, and they had the bigs on the inside, but they just never finished at the rim. And it just was a kind of something plaguing them. They did have Maddie Keener score her 1,000th point in her career. And that was really cool because after the game, they had a nice little ceremony before everybody could leave. Coach Keener had a game ball all ready to go just in case she hit that. And when she did, at the end of the game, the PA announcer, Micah, was in on it and stopped everything and said, "Hey, here it is." And it was a nice moment, for Maddie and her dad, Brent.
And second Mountain Home Tiger to cross that 1,000-point barrier this year, along with Brandon Bethel on the boys team. So that's really exciting. Maddie Keener and Sadie Drake both made the honorable mention all-tournament team for Mountain Home. So, disappointing way to end the season at state, but what an incredible overall regular season for Mountain Home. Back-to-back appearances at state as well, 2 consecutive trips. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, they did a fantastic job the next couple of years, and they still get Maddie Keener back next year. So, if they can get some pieces around her, they will be contending again. So we'll see.
Definitely. Well, unfortunately for the rest of the Magic Valley, we had Burley with the championship, but there were no other championship winners, but still some impressive performances. I think the next best performance to come out of the Magic Valley probably was Raft River. They got to the semifinals. So, I mean, the way the Max Preps rankings works, it's designed to avoid those like conference opponents playing each other in the first round, but that's what we got in the 1A D1s. Raft River and Oakley had to match up for the 4th time this year. That was a foul-plagued game, Scott. That was the game I was at. And Raft River survived 37-24 and then ran into that Lapway buzzsaw like so many teams do. And they never recovered from that because then they had to play Butte County in the 3rd place game, and they ended up losing that. But a 4th place finish for a Raft River team that wasn't on a lot of people's radar going into the season, which is a nice season for them.
Oh, it was a great season. Despite how the state tournament ended up, I mean, they were in the shadow of Oakley and Murtaugh for so long, and next thing you know, they're stealing a berth, and here they are at state. Murtaugh stays home, and they did a great job in their district tournament. They just like to play that physical brand of basketball, keeps the points down, but the physicality high. And that works for the most part until you play a team like Lapway that will just run you off the planet. And I mean, you can do an entire 30 for 30 on the Lapway basketball program, boys and girls. But I mean, anytime somebody sees that matchup, we got to play Lapway. They can't be too excited about it because, I mean, that team right there is so much better than everybody else that's at the tournament, 1A, 2A, 3A, maybe 4A. I mean, I'm not kidding. I mean, you watch these guys play. Holy cow. It's something else.
I mean, every game was 25 points or better for the Lapway girls, which was impressive. So for Raft River, Caroline Schumann made the first team all-tournament team. These were my selections as I was the broadcaster for 1A D1. Okay. But the problem was they never had that second option. Like Caroline Schumann was the focal point of the offense, and they never had that second player step up that could help offload some of that offensive scoring. And so, but the nice thing with Raft River is not a single senior on the roster, Scott. So they bring back everybody next year.
Yeah, that's really exciting for Raft River. They are just, like I said, hard-nosed kids, but now they've got a taste of state, and every single one of them was there, and they know what it's going to take this time around. And I'm excited to see what Raft River does next year. Everybody stays together and stays healthy, because seldom do you get teams that go to state and bring everybody back. And when you do, that experience factor makes a huge difference.
So the good news is Raft River brings everybody back. The bad news is Oakley only loses one senior, and they bring back everybody in their top 8. So Oakley's going to be right there as well. I really thought that Oakley had a chance in that opening round game with Raft River if they hadn't gotten into foul trouble. And again, this was a game that had like 40 combined fouls between the two teams.
Yeah, the funny thing about that, Brandon, is you get these different officials from different parts of the state that officiate different than what you're used to. And I saw this at the 4As, is players not adjusting their game on the floor. And it drove me absolutely bonkers. you're not getting your conference officials that know how the style in that conference works. Because I'm telling you, the 1A officials are not the same as the 4A officials. And you could say that across the board on anything. And so part of being a smart basketball player is going to state and knowing this, and then adjusting your game accordingly. I was about ready to come out of my skin at the 4As as everybody's fouling out, but nobody is adjusting any part of their game. And so you've got to be smart with that. And I'm not saying that's what happened with Raft River and Oakley, but I do know the style of basketball that they play. And it is physical, and which I love. But if you're not getting that type of officiating, then you better adjust real quick.
Yeah, and that was the problem with Oakley. They ran into too much foul trouble, and once they got that first round loss out of the way against Raft River, they looked like one of the better teams of the tournament. I mean, they won their loser out game, and then they won the consolation title over Notice as well. And talking to head coach Matt Payton, he said, in that Raft River game, they were a little tight. They didn't have that confidence that they had in the regular season. And he said that was going to be important if they wanted to get to day 3, was to have that confidence and play like they were confident, and they did that. And Addie Mitten in particular, I thought was really impressive for Oakley. She ended up making the honorable mention all tournament team along with Fallon Bedke, the great 6-foot center. So for Oakley, I thought once the pressure was off, they played really well, and I would expect them to be right back in the mix next year at state. So
yeah, and the same thing goes for them with experience. But it's amazing when you see a team's confidence get shattered, or at least tested, how quickly that spreads throughout the unit. Because, coming out of the district tournament, they dropped 1 to Raft River, and that's what put them into the losers bracket to begin with. And you can't help but think that maybe that was in the back of their minds a little bit. We lost to them at district tournament. We're going to do this again at state, and confidence is a funny thing. And you've got to have a swagger. You've got to believe that you're going to go up against teams like Lapwai and beat them. Because the minute you start letting that doubt creep in, you're sunk. And I think you're right. Once they kind of got their confidence back a little bit, they started playing their brand of basketball.
Moving on to the 1A D2s, Richfield ends up winning their first round game against Ledore, falling to Council in the semifinals. And then they fell to Deary in the 3rd place game as well. But a 4th place finish for Richfield, which is a tremendous mark for what is still kind of a young team. They've got a lot of sophomores and juniors that are kind of leading the way there. And then, of course, Cary got in as the number 8 seed overall because of the Max Preps rankings. And, they lost. They had to play Rockland, the state champs, right away, lost that game. And then Kendrick got upset in their first round game. So they had to play Kendrick, which was the 1A D2 runner-up last year. Mm-hmm. And so not surprising that Cary went 0-2, a tough draw in the bracket.
Yeah, and those are what we're talking about earlier, about things having to break your way to earn a trophy, to win a title. And for Cary, they just got 2 of the worst draws they could possibly imagine. One out of the gate, and then an upset that allowed them to face Kendrick. So the state tournament's a funny thing. But, you go back to that Richfield team, that young Richfield team that got in, this is where, as a coaching staff, you really use this as a springboard for next year and the year after that. Because when you've got a young team that made it to state, there is no reason why that young team shouldn't make it to state the next year, right? And so you use this as a program builder. And so, if you're Richfield, man, that's really what you got to do here. And I'm sure they are.
For sure. Casey Hendren, just a sophomore, made the 2nd team, all-tournament team for Richfield. Shelby Jones won the 6th man award, 7.7 points per game, 3 rebounds per game, 1.7 blocks per game off the bench. And, Tori Truman was a great player inside for Richfield as well. For Cary, Shaylee Smith made the honorable mention all-conference or all-tournament team, as did Tori Truman from Richfield. So that's what happened at the 1A D2s. And then, you had Filer at the 3A, Declo at the 2A. Both teams came in as the number 8 seeds. Both teams went 2 and out, which is, when you get slotted into that number 8 seed and you're playing the best right away, it's hard. We didn't see a single 8 beat a 1. And we really haven't seen it, since we've gone to Max Preps, right? In volleyball, we saw it in soccer like once maybe, but otherwise, if you're in that 8 seed, it's really tough. And from there, both Declo and Filer went 2-0, but nice season still nonetheless.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. And you take it for what it is. You were the 8 seed, period. You got to play the best, So now at least what you have with Filer and Declo is you got to see the best. So what your game has to be like now. If you want to contend at the state tournament, you just played the number 1. So maybe you can use that as something to shoot for, in the future. It's like we have to be that good. And so if there's something to take out of being the 8th seed, if you're one of those 2 teams, that's it.
For sure. Caden Spencer of Declo made the honorable mention all tournament team. And for Filer, Lexi Monson made the honorable mention all tournament team as well. So all in all, a pretty decent season for girls basketball in the Magic Valley, 1 state championship and a lot of teams that did well. And the problem is, Scott, when you get to the 3A, 2A level, is those conferences are so small that now the non-conference scheduling becomes super important, especially with this Max Preps ranking moving forward. And then conversely, all the other leagues are larger leagues, so you have less wiggle room to boost your Max Preps ranking.
Yeah, for sure. And it's really kind of, put an interesting twist on scheduling at all levels, really. But, when you have X amount of spots for non-con games, you've got to be really selective on who you fill that with, because you've got to think about, gosh, and I even hate to say it. I mean, you really do have to think about improving your ranking if you have a state caliber team, because the last thing you want to do is get stuck as a 7 or 8 and then play one of the top 2 teams when you think maybe you should be a 4, but your Max Prep ranking says otherwise. So yeah, it really makes it interesting on the scheduling part of things.
Yeah, and we'll see how that goes as we move forward and teams and athletic directors and coaches tried to adjust there. But it was a great season for girls basketball. Let's transition now to boys basketball. A couple of bids have been clinched from the Magic Valley so far. And again, if you're watching the video version of this on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel or Facebook page, we're going to show the brackets up on the screen so you can kind of follow along with what we are looking at. And if you are listening audio only at IdahoSports.com or wherever you download your podcasts, we have all the boys district brackets right on the homepage at IdahoSports.com. So let's go ahead and pull up. Let's just start in the Great Basin Conference here, the 4A ranks. Here's where we sit. Jerome will play Burley. It's a 1 versus a 2, and that'll be for the district championship Wednesday night. We're recording this Wednesday afternoon, and so Scott, you must be getting ready for a district championship game this season.
Yeah, you betcha. I just got the gym all set up, ready to go. We're going to have Burley showing up here in about an hour and a half or so, and it should be a really good game because these 2 teams played obviously twice before, and even though Jerome is blistering their schedule, these 2 games were close. Burley is a really good basketball team on the boys' side. Now, we've just got done talking about how good the girls are. This is a Burley team that I fully expect to be at state and could get a couple of wins based on, where they're ranked and placed. But man, these guys are good. They've got it all. They've got the size. They've got the shooters. They're fast. I mean, they've got it going on. Should be a really good game.
What Max Stannard has done in his second year as the coach there, after coming over from CUNA, it's been phenomenal. I mean, it's been very impressive what he's been able to do in just a short amount of time. I was surprised that not that Burley beat Minico in the district semifinals, but the margin of victory. They won by 30, or 20 points, 58-38. It was eye-opening to me. Yeah,
if Burley can get off and start shooting the basketball, they're dangerous because Minico's going to, we know Minico, they're that kind of team they want it ugly. They don't have a lot of scoring outside of Brevin. And if they can slow it down, take some air out of the ball, physical you up and make it kind of ugly, they need those low scoring games. Burley comes out just smoking hot, and that put an end to that theory real quick.
And then in a loser out game tonight as well, we have Minico hosting Mountain Home. And I'll be honest, I'm not sure how this goes. I think either team, honestly, I like Jerome to win tonight against Burley. And then I think between Burley, Minico, and Mountain Home, throw a dart at the board, and whoever plays the best over these last 2 games at districts, I think gets that second spot.
You know what? And I think if Jerome is to get by Burley tonight, I'm still the superstitious coach as well,
Right.
But I think Burley is the second seed. I think this whole district goes chalk. Now, whether or not Minico beats Mountain Home tonight, that'll be. I will tell you this though: take the under in the because Mountain Home loves to take the air out of the ball as well. Minico likes to kind of mess things up and make it ugly. This ought to be a really fun game just for that fact alone. But I do see Burley and Jerome are the two teams coming out of this bracket.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun to chart that and see how it goes. If we move on to the 3A ranks, how about this? You had Kimberly, defeat top-seeded Buell in what was the de facto district championship game, 47-42. So Kimberly gets to state. I think a lot of people would tell you Kimberly was the best team in that league this year. What happened was there was like this crazy three-way tie. And so Buell got the number 1 seed on the tiebreakers, but I think most people would tell you Kimberly was the best team. And then how about Buell? Not only do they lose to Kimberly, but then they turn around and lose to Filer by a point, 43-42. So Buell goes from the top seed to Dunzo. And Filer is a team that I've seen in person this year. They're really good and scrappy and competitive, but they don't have the size. They don't have that one big they can lean on. It's a lot of 5'10" to 6 foot players. But now you've got basically Kimberly and Filer duking it out for the district championship, and the winner gets to go to state. The loser will have to go to a play-in game.
Yeah. And watching kind of from a distance this conference, Kimberly was, I think, the best team in this conference all season long. They have the size, they've got the speed, they've got athletes, they gave us some fits here. And that's just a really good team. It did surprise me that Buell lost the one to Filer. I don't think anybody saw that one coming. Talk about some confidence now with Filer going in. I think Kimberly wins this game. I think Filer goes on and plays, that 5-6B team on, I think it's Saturday. And hopefully they get a chance to represent the Magic Valley as well. But I like this Kimberly team. I always have all season long.
Yeah, it's probably going to be Snake River that gets to that play-in game, and they're good. They're very good. They just happen to be in the same conference as the defending 3A champs from Marsh Valley. So you need to win that. You need to win that game tonight. If you're Kimberly, you do not want to be in a play-in game with Snake River.
No, you don't want to be on anything with Snake River. Doesn't matter what it is. You don't want to play Snake River in anything.
Yeah. Can I ask you real quick? Earlier this year, Snake River's boys coach, Bob Coombs, picked up his 500th career win. Has anybody done that in Idaho previously?
500 wins?
Yes.
Yeah. Not to my knowledge. I mean, you break that down. I mean, do the math. You figure you're getting, let's say, 9 wins a season, right? Carry the 1. 9 wins a season. So that's roughly about 55 years, isn't it? I don't know.
I think he's been coaching there for 30 years, but that equates out to 18 or 19 wins a year every year. It's very impressive.
That's insane. I mean, really, when you think about that, you would have to go how many years? 30 in a 30-year career, which is insane to begin with. That's averaging every single year almost 17 wins a game or a year. Phenomenal. Yeah.
So Kimberly needs to win this game tonight if they really want to assure themselves a spot at state. Mm-hmm. All right, the 2A, the Canyon Conference. We talked about how wild this regular season was and how unpredictable this tournament was going to be. And you saw it bear out where Wendell, the number 2 seed, the team that won this district last year, goes 2-out. They lost in their opening round game to Valley after winning the regular season series. They lost by 10. And then they lost to we talked about this Declo team below 500, but appeared to be peaking at the right time. And now you've got Valley and Declo playing tomorrow night. Declo needs to win that game to force the if necessary game. Valley could be the number 3 seed going in, and with a win tomorrow night, win the district as well.
Crazy, isn't it? It's amazing what momentum and getting hot at the right time will do for you. And you see teams all season long just peak a little bit too soon to where they're not chasing anything anymore. They've kind of hit their plateau. And I don't think this Valley team is done rising yet, just because they're just getting great at the right time. And as if you've never coached, then that's a hard concept to explain. And the journey that has to happen in order for a team to get to that point, it truly is something that, as a coach, you have to understand that this basketball season, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint, and we see so many teams just come out of the gate swinging and then win their first 8 and they're looking great. And then pretty soon it's like they cannot keep up that energy forever. I think Valley had paced themselves the right way. And I think that's what you see when you get a team hot going into district, peaking at the right time.
Yes, you talked about it, and you had talked to Valley coach Brian Hardy earlier in the season, and he's like, yeah, I'm not too worried about, we lost to Wendell and they kind of ran us out of the gym, but I'm not worried about it because we were injured and we were missing a lot of our key guys. And it sounded like, the main focus for them was on districts, and now here they are with the opportunity to advance to state. And man, he's been to state a lot, Coach Hardy, so he knows what he's doing. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, there's no question. And it's a veteran coach who understands not to get too excited about things in the regular season. It's always a litmus test during the regular season when you match up against these teams. See where you're at. They're all measuring sticks, but really at the end of the day, it's all about that district tournament. But you can't burn yourself out emotionally before you get there. And a lot of teams do that, to where they've got nothing emotionally left in the tank because they've spent it all during the regular season. And Coach Hardy, he's been around enough. He knows how to do that the right way.
Definitely. 1A D1s. You've got Oakley winning the district. They went undefeated in district play in the regular season, and they won the district tournament. And I don't even think they were really ever challenged. Lighthouse Christian ended up playing Oakley in the championship, and Oakley won that game by 9. And now at the bottom half of the bracket, how about Murtaugh, as the number 2 seed, and they got the 2 seed on a couple of tiebreakers, but they go 2 and out essentially. And because of that, now you've got Raft River and Lighthouse, a 4 and a 3, playing for the right to take that second spot to state.
Yeah, just piggyback off the conversation we just had, about getting hot at the right time and having an experienced coach. Lighthouse, Daquan Montreal, he knows what he's doing. He's been around the sport a very long time. And before I forget, on that bracket, it says Jerome High School, February 23rd. That's tonight, right? That game has been pushed to tomorrow, the 24th, due to our district championship game. So,
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, that was a change that was made once we realized what was happening with our own team here. But yeah, I mean, again, I like this Lighthouse team and the way that they're coached and the way they get up and down the floor, and they've got some pieces there. And I think that Raft River game is going to be a really fun one tomorrow, and I'll be here watching that one.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear your take on that. And you talked about Allen Iverson earlier, and boy, Clay Silva really reminds me of him because he's smaller, but man, he can really put the ball in the net, and he's kind of the engine that makes this Lighthouse team go. Clay Silva.
Oh yeah, no question about it. And then again, it goes kind of back to the Amari Whiting thing we talked about. I mean, how good and how well trained is that supporting cast to feed off of them and have roles to play. And I think Lighthouse does a really good job of that.
Yeah, for sure. And for Oakley, congratulations on advancing to state. Scott, I will mention at the 1A D1 girls tournament that I was at, the Oakley boys were there throughout the tournament, and not even just for Oakley's games. They were there when Raft River was playing and kind of becoming Raft River fans. And then I know they went across town when Burley was playing, and they joined the Burley student section. And so for the Oakley boys that were there and competing, they really, for me, redefined what sportsmanship is all about, because these are fellow Magic Valley teams, and they kind of took up the mantle and said, yeah, let's really cheer on our own here from the Magic Valley. It was really fun to watch.
I love that kind of thing too, because you don't get that in the bigger schools. You don't. I think right now in these days, that is a strictly a small school trait. And because the small schools are more about community than any of the bigger schools are. There's very little loyalty in some of the 5A schools and even some of the 4As, unless you're coming from a town. But when you get into those 1As and those 2As, it's all about community. And sometimes that community doesn't necessarily mean it's your school, and to do what they did, man, I wish schools around the state would take a lesson from that, because that's what makes it fun. And can you imagine what it felt like to be one of those, Raft River people or the Burley people or whatever, just that community, and these kids show up at another school and they're cheering for you? I mean, come on, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was really fun. And then conversely, it went the other way too, where, the Oakley girls were playing very early Friday in a loser out game, and the Raft River girls were playing in the semifinals, and they didn't have to be to the gym until, 5:00 at night, but they got there at 12 to cheer on Raft River and to cheer on Oakley, and their girls basketball team was right behind the Oakley bench, cheering on those Oakley girls as well. So they got to the gym early on Friday, knowing they had a semifinal game, just to cheer on their fellow Magic Valley team, which I thought was really cool also.
Yeah, absolutely love that. And I wish more schools would do that. That's amazing.
Yeah, for sure. All right, finally, 1A D2s. We've got the district championship game tonight, Wednesday night. It is number 1 Cary. It is number 3 Camas County. Now, you can't really take into account the seeds, because Camas County has been one of the top ranked teams in the polls all year. There was a 3-way tie for first between Cary, Camas County, and Castleford. So they all, 1, 2, 3 are all pretty solid. The winner of this game advances to state. The loser of this game will probably have to play Castleford, for the right to take that second bid. And like I said, these teams all beat up on each other during the regular season. So tonight's district championship, a very important game to win for both Cary and Camas.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it seems like we talked a lot about Camas during the football season. It's the year of the musher. And especially on boys sports, they are having a fantastic year. But you're right. That log jam at the top with Cary, Camas, and Castleford, 1 versus 3, it's more like 1 versus 1. And that should be a really fun game for both of these teams. But you can't help but pull for the underdog just a little bit, because the year of the musher it's been the theme. It's been really cool to see them have all this success. And it's continuing in basketball.
Cary's one of those teams that always seems to be at state. Coach Simpson has done a tremendous job with that boys program. And, I guess we shouldn't officially pencil in Castleford, because they have to play the Cutthroats, the Sun Valley Community School, in the 3rd and 4th place game tonight as well. Sun Valley knocked off Dietrich, upset Dietrich earlier this week, 54-52. Clay Warner is the coach of the Cutthroats, and he's done a nice job with that team. And, maybe they're riding the wave a little bit. Who knows? Maybe Sun Valley Community School is ready to make a little Cinderella run also.
Yeah, it's funny because you talk about the community school and it's almost regulated to soccer, and you talk about them now making some noise in the district basketball tournament, pulling an upset. Wow, go Cutthroats.
That'll be really fun to watch them play Castleford tonight in the 3rd and 4th place game. And then, Cary and Camas County, all those games taking place at Shoshone High School. So it's a doubleheader tonight. Castleford, Sun Valley up first at 6. Cary and Camas County will follow after that. So that's going to be our last peek at boys district basketball before state. By the time we're talking next week, we'll know all the bids. We'll know where everybody's playing, and we'll have the big breakdown. Yeah, Scott, we're going to do a live preview show again, like we did for girls basketball, where we, brought on all of the broadcasters and broke down all the brackets. So all of the basketball fans next week can expect that again, probably next Tuesday night, 7:00, just like we did for the girls. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And just listening to all of that kind of felt like I was part of the other gymnasiums where the brackets were, even though I was kind of,
regulated to the 4A, I had a little bit of background, and it was fun. It was very informative and very well done. Great job with the host, whoever that was.
Yeah, it's some average Joe. I'm not. Yeah, I don't know about that. Hey, speaking of live preview shows, Scott, as well. Tonight, Wednesday night, 7:00, live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, we are going to have our state wrestling preview show. I'm going to be joined by Brian Zollinger, who, he lives in Idaho Falls, but he knows wrestling almost better than anybody in the state of Idaho. And we're going to be taking everybody's questions and comments and shout outs. And man, state wrestling coming up at Holt Arena in Pocatello this weekend. On the boys' side, both Jerome and Minico, I think, are heading to state with championship aspirations.
They are. Jerome is the defending 4A state champions. They've got the work cut out for them, though. They're very well coached. I'll put it that way. I mean, they've got the knowledge base with, Coach Larson and Coach Ringling. They're just amazing. But they did lose some state champions from last year. So even though they're defending their title, it's Nampa and Minico, I think, is got to be 1-2. And I think Jerome's going to try to play spoiler this year. But they have enough to make some noise. It's just going to see how things fall. But Nampa and Minico are solid this year.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of good competition in the first officially sanctioned girls wrestling competition as well. We'll see if any Magic Valley competitors can do well on the girls bracket as well. So that'll be a lot of fun to chart throughout the weekend. So, yeah,
it really will be interesting to see what kind of momentum the first girls state tournament generates, and then what kind of interest from other, in the schools and other programs moving forward that's going to do. Because, there's a few schools that are just solid in girls wrestling, and then there's some that just don't have anybody out. So I'm curious to see the residual effect of having the first tournament, see what it does.
Can only get bigger and better, that's for sure. So that'll do it for this edition of the Magic Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com. Next week we will have a live show again, the boys basketball state tournament preview special, and we'll put that into your podcast feed. So if you just subscribe to the Magic Valley Prepcast, wherever you download your podcasts, or you follow it on YouTube or whatever, we will have that boys basketball preview special for you next week. And very excited because I think a lot of Magic Valley teams have potential to bring home trophies in boys hoops. So,
yep, absolutely. There are some really good teams in basketball in Magic Valley here. So we'll be talking about every single one of them next Tuesday.
No doubt. All right, Scott, enjoy that district championship tonight as well. It's going to be a lot of fun. You playing DJ? You playing the ones and twos?
I am DJing. I'm the PA guy. I'm PA guy for all of our home games, football, basketball, checkers, whatever. So I'll be on the mic and spinning some records, and it's going to be a great time. Hopefully it has a good ending.
Yeah, for sure. The Oakley boys went over to the PA announcer at Columbia at State last week and requested a Backstreet Boys song, I Want It That Way, and they did a little dance routine to it and got the crowd all revved up. So
nice.
It was a lot of fun.
Nice. Love that. That's awesome. That's funny because when I was spinning records for them at their tournament, that was one of the songs that was on my playlist for them. Yeah. And that's great. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. So we'll see if the girls reciprocate for the boys at State next week. We'll see.
Yeah, they better. And if they all listen to this, they dang well better.
That's right. All right. Well, I'll let you go get ready for that. Thank you for tuning in once again to the Magic Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com. For Scott Burton, I'm Brandon Baney. Enjoy the competition this weekend, everybody, and we'll see you back here next time on IdahoSports.com.